Good morning, bon matin tout le monde. Bonne semaine de tourisme and happy Tourism Week to everybody in the room. So pleased to be here. Allow me to take a moment to recognize my colleague parliamentarians who are with us today. Of course, we have Senator Sorensen. La députée Julie Vignola est également parmi nous du Bloc québécois. On a notre ami et collègue du Parti libéral, Patrick Weiler. And of course, we have our Minister of Tourism here with us today, who we'll hear from in a few minutes, Minister Randy Boissonnault. J'aimerais tout d'abord commencer en soulignant que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire traditionnel de la nation Algonquin-Anishinaabe et j'aimerais également accueillir et reconnaître Nina qui est là du Centre Shaw. Nina assumed the role of President and CEO of the Shaw Centre just on June 1st, 2015, at a very similar time that a change was happening in Ottawa, not too far away from here. And before Nina's appointment, she was the General Manager of the Shaw Centre's Food and Facilities Operations, managed by Aramark Sports and Entertainment. Nina has over 25 years of hospitality and industry experience in senior positions in hotels, gaming and entertainment, conventions, and congress centers. From Halifax to Toronto, and now, of course, right here in our nation's capital in Ottawa, Nina's passion for delivering an exceptional customer experience is ingrained in her DNA and remains part of her brand. I'd like to welcome Nina over to say a few opening remarks. Nina, over to you.
Happy Tourism Week to you too. Thank you, Rachel. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour, Madame et Messieurs. Bienvenue au Centre Shaw. A warm welcome to all of our distinguished guests this morning, ministers of parliament and senators and industry leaders. I am absolutely delighted and thrilled today that we are celebrating and kicking off National Tourism Week here at the award-winning Shaw Centre, voted the best convention center in the world in 2021. Thank you. And it wasn't voted by me, it was actually voted by the International Association of Convention Centers based in Brussels. So it is a huge honor for us and a huge honor for our team. Business tourism or business events are big business and they are huge and large contributors to our economy. In fact, this year alone, we are forecasted to contribute as a convention center $170 million to our local economy just in the events that we are hosting. And we know that that generates jobs within our own convention center as well as in our community. In fact, it is forecasted to be our busiest year ever since opening our doors in 2011. And we know when we host events like this and major international and national conventions, we know that many of the visitors or the delegates bring their families along. And they bring their families along and they vacation in our beautiful city, they explore our beautiful province, and the trickle effect within tourism is huge on our tourism ecosystem. And we know when the Shaw Centre is busy, the Rideau Centre is busy, the taxis are busy, the hoteliers are happy, and all the job and the lists goes on and on of how that trickle effect goes down. So, you know, I really think it's safe to say that I would suspect that many of us in this room, you know, started our jobs in tourism somehow, some way, and I know I did as a very young teenager many years ago at a beautiful and very busy canteen on a beach called Queensland Beach in Nova Scotia, where I flipped burgers and I scooped ice cream, and it was my first paying job in tourism, and I've never looked back. So it has been an absolute thrill. So while I am so excited to say that we are going to have the best year ever, we know that business events are still rebounding after the pandemic. And I'm thrilled to see that our federal government has and recognizes the value of business events on our local economy. And I thank you so much for your contribution of $50 million to Destination Canada over the course of the next 3 years to put us on a highly competitive global platform where we compete across the world to bring significant major events and business events to our city. So thank you. And I also want to make recognition that the budget also referenced easing the process of low-risk travelers into our country, which we heard loud and clear on trade show floors that it can hinder our opportunity to attract big business and business events to Canada. So thank you to our government for taking our words and taking them to heart and making changes as we move forward. So, in closing, thank you to our partners in tourism, from government to industry. I am so optimistic about our future, and I'm specifically proud of what we do here at the Shaw Centre. You know, we are people at a team of inspired people creating extraordinary events, and it is the team that is behind me on a day-to-day basis that delivers that experience to our customers. So thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for coming out this morning on this somewhat soggy day, but still, nevertheless, a beautiful view from the Trillium Ballroom. And merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful tourism week.
Thank you so much, Nina, and thank you for welcoming us to the Shaw Centre this morning. The Minister and I were just saying what a source of pride it is to have the world recognize this as the top convention centre globally, basically confirming what we all already knew. So, j'aimerais poursuivre notre agenda de ce matin en levant mon chapeau à Beth Potter. Beth mène une équipe de main forte à l'Association de l'industrie touristique du Canada et elle a encore une fois de plus organisé cette importante semaine de célébration et de reconnaissance de notre magnifique industrie touristique. Canadian tourism has shown its strength and resiliency, and I'd like to emphasize the latter, resiliency. And that resiliency is really thanks to the tireless advocacy and work of TIAC, and at its heart, the work of Beth Potter as champion for our sector and its workers. Beth Potter is an accomplished leader with over 35 years of diversified provincial and national association experience, and with 20 years of experience in the tourism sector in particular. En mars 2021, Beth s'est jointe à l'Association de l'industrie touristique du Canada dans le but d'accroître la sensibilisation à l'industrie dans tout le Canada et de renforcer les objectifs et les résultats de l'organisation en matière de défense des intérêts, alors que le secteur travaille à se remettre de la pandémie de la COVID-19 et à la suite, vraiment à la suite des choses post-pandémie. At the international level, Beth is an active member of the World Travel and Tourism Council, the COVID-19 Task Force and Government Affairs Working Group at the international level. As a testament to her leadership in the industry, Beth was recently named one of the top 50 women in travel by Global Business Travel Association. So it is a particular honor to welcome to the stage Beth to say a few words about where Canada's Tourism Industry Association is at and where we're headed. Beth?
Bon, merci beaucoup, Rachel, pour des vraiment beaux mots. Before my remarks, I would just like to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on the unceded and unsurrendered territories of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin Nation. So thank you, Rachel, for being with us today and for your kind introduction. And thank you, Nina, for your warm welcome to the Shaw Centre and for your great words around reminding us how important business events are to our industry. Of course, I also want to say my deepest gratitude to the Honourable Randy Boissonnault, Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance, for being with us this morning. You know, I thank you, Minister, not only for helping us launch National Tourism Week today, but for also being a real steadfast supporter and a champion in every sense of the definition for tourism here in Canada. I also wish to acknowledge the presence of our Parliamentary Tourism Caucus executives. We've got with us the co-chairs, Senator Karen Sorensen and MP Patrick Wheeler. Thank you. Our vice chairs joined us for breakfast this morning, and they are Tony Bonelli, Richard Cannings, and also with us right now, Julie Vignola. For those of you that don't know, the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, or TIAC as everyone calls it, we are the national advocacy voice for tourism here at home. On behalf of more than 250,000 operators in every riding across the country, we promote federal policies, programs, and other initiatives that foster tourism's growth. Today, we are launching our 13th annual National Tourism Week campaign. This 7-day social media campaign is designed to highlight and celebrate the importance of tourism to Canada. It invites tourism leaders from coast to coast to coast, and from both the private and public sectors, to come together to champion and promote Canada's destinations, tourism businesses, experiences, and employees. Tourism operators and many elected officials from across Canada, including our own Prime Minister, Mr. Justin Trudeau, our Minister Boissonnault, and the Parliamentary Tourism Caucus executives, only to name a few, have prepared video remarks about Tourism Week that we'll be sharing broadly across our social media platforms. They'll also be available on our website. Many operators, including attractions, accommodations, and conference centers, will also be actively engaged on social media and will be lighting up their facilities in green. See the green lights behind you? To celebrate Tourism Week all week. Nous croyons que le thème de cette année, le tourisme, moteur de l'économie du Canada, reflète bien plusieurs aspects importants du tourisme. First, it signifies that tourism is a key driver to Canada's economy and employment growth. As Minister Boissonnault has said many times, there is no trade without travel. And it also underscores that tourism is a perfect way to foster social cohesion and to share Canada's values and ideals on the global stage. Canada truly is powered by tourism in so many ways. Le thème de cette année nous a été inspiré par notre détermination à redevenir la force économique exceptionnelle de 105 milliards de dollars que nous étions avant la pandémie. Prior to COVID, 1 in 10 workers in Canada had a job in tourism. My first job was in tourism. I was a ride attendant at an amusement park. That represented close to 2 million jobs in total, and the sector accounted for 2% of Canada's total GDP. While we are past the survival stage and now fully into the rebuilding forward stage, we still have a significant way to go before we fully achieve our recovery from the pandemic. The latest projections suggest that total tourism spending will recover in 2024, but the sectors are not all recovering at the same pace. Domestic spending should recover later this year. U.S. spending in 2024 and overseas by 2025. And given that we are here in the beautiful Shaw Centre in Ottawa, it is only fitting that I speak briefly about the business event sector. This sector includes meeting events, exhibitions, trade shows, conventions, incentive travel, and the entire infrastructure that supports them. Pre-COVID, business events accounted for $41 billion of our total tourism spending, or about 40%. During the pandemic, it dropped to near zero. It is expected to be the very last of all the tourism sectors to rebuild from the pandemic. And this is especially true with regard to the foreign share of this activity. The latest data shows that the number of international business events scheduled to take place in Canada in 2022 was only about 55% of pre-pandemic levels. And the future booking pace 5 years out was only 47%. Il est essentiel de se concentrer sur la reconstruction du tourisme et le repositionnement du secteur afin d'encourager une croissance plusieurs fois supérieure dans l'avenir. En brief, le tourisme compte. It enables socio-economic development, job creation, and poverty reduction. This drives prosperity and provides unique opportunities to women, minorities, and young people. The benefits spread far beyond direct GDP impact and employment. The indirect gains extend through the entire travel ecosystem and supply chains to other sectors. Despite some improvement over the last 12 months, tourism businesses continue to struggle financially and are carrying significant debt loads. They face barriers to attracting investment and are having difficulty attracting and retaining the necessary workforce to successfully carry out their operations. Continued disruption in supply chains and high inflation and interest rates are also having a significant impact on businesses. In last month's federal budget, the government recognized the importance of tourism to Canada and supporting its growth. It said, among other things, with travel resuming and the industry beginning to turn the corner, there is an opportunity to invest in Canada's tourism sector and ensure it can continue to be a driver of good jobs and vibrant communities across Canada. And we could not agree more. There is a huge future potential in Canada's tourism sector in every corner of Canada, and this indeed represents a significant investment opportunity. We were very pleased to see announced in the budget the first building blocks of the new federal tourism growth strategy that will aim to chart a course for growth, investment, and stability in Canada's tourism sector. And Nina already mentioned them, but I would be remorseful if I did not specify what these two big investments looked like. So specifically, we welcome the proposal to provide over the next 3 years $108 million through the regional development agencies to support communities, small business, and nonprofit organizations in developing local projects and events, and $50 million through Destination Canada to attract major international events, conferences, and conventions to Canada. La thème de cette année nous a été inspiré par notre détermination à redevenir la force économique exceptionnelle de 105 milliards de dollars que nous étions avant la pandémie. We really do appreciate the support that was given in the budget, especially considering how tight the fiscal budget was, the federal budget was this year, and in light of other priorities that are of top mind to Canadians. On behalf of the tourism operators across the country, I thank the federal government for its support. I thank you, Minister Boissonnault, for fighting so hard to make sure there was room in the budget for our important sector. You are a true tourism champion, as I said at the outset, and we really do appreciate the work that you've done for us. In closing, besides inviting everyone to join us in celebrating National Tourism Week, I encourage all Canadians this summer to get out, to discover and experience all that Canada has to offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you for sharing with us the theme of this Tourism Week 2023. Thank you for also sharing with us some of the numbers. So as we can see, tourism is bouncing back at different rates across the country and at different paces for different sectors. But together with the help of key industry and Indigenous partners, as well as our government, I think it's fair to say that tourism has also bounced forward. C'est clair que le tourisme est un puissant moteur de notre économie et j'ai le plaisir également de partager quelques chiffres. Les dépenses touristiques au Canada ont en effet augmenté de 2,1% au quatrième trimestre de 2022, soit la 7e hausse trimestrielle consécutive. C'est quand même des bonnes nouvelles. Le tourisme est aussi l'expression, il faut se le rappeler, de notre culture et de nos valeurs uniques ici au Canada. C'est pourquoi notre dernier budget fédéral prévoit des fonds pour permettre aux régions de créer des expériences, comme Beth l'a mentionné, et pour développer des projets et des événements locaux. And it's why Minister Boissonnault and I are committed to creating the winning conditions that will see tourism thrive for decades and decades to come. It is always a distinct pleasure to be able to welcome to the stage our Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance, Randy Boissonnault, and as you'll see, his energy and his enthusiasm for tourism is infective to begin our Tourism Week and to welcome this fantastic industry to Ottawa. Please allow me to introduce my friend Randy Boissonnault, your Minister of Tourism and Associate Minister of Finance.
Merci, Mme Kressler. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning. Kwe. Nice to see you all. Sufficiently caffeinated, everyone? Merci, Rachel, pour cet accueil chaleureux. Beth, thank you very much. Nina, thank you for hosting in one of the world's great, if not greatest, convention centers. And I have to be careful because you know I'm the Edmonton Centre MP, right? But we're here with you this morning, and I remember when this place was built, and I thought we would be able to actually have a space that would give people the sense of our capital city on a global stage, and you and your colleagues have done just that. So thank you for hosting us today. And remember, everyone, April showers bring May flowers. On a besoin de la pluie en avril pour que les tulipes poussent en mai, because that's important for tourism too, right, Tourism Ottawa? I know, because my mom's going to Amsterdam and she made sure that she made her trip happen at the right time so she could be at Tulip Festival, because she's been to the Ottawa Tulip Festival and now she wants to go to the source because she knows the story. So we'll put up with the rain for today. Chers collègues du tourisme, Karen, Patrick, Julie, merci d'être ici avec nous aujourd'hui. C'est le fait qu'on a ce caucus parlementaire très chaleureux, qu'on est capable de livrer la marchandise pour le tourisme, le secteur du tourisme. And I think, you know, there is no secret that when Parliament works and works behind the scenes and, you know, pushes and pushes and pushes, that we can make magic happen. And I'm not going to talk more about the budget than that, to say that we've heard the tourism sector, we're here for the tourism sector, and I can't wait to see what we're going to do this year and beyond. And I do want to say that we are on the unceded territories of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin peoples, and I want to thank Beth personally for your work at TIAC. And look, there's all the official stuff and all the titles and all the awards that she's won and all that stuff, but Beth also leans in and make sure that Canada's voice is heard. And so when we were newbies in this role last year and we were on our way to the G20, Beth reached in and said, you know, there's the World Trade and Tourism Congress that's happening the day before, and it probably would make sense for you to be there. And so we did. But more than that, we got to participate and we got to really lean in on what is a fundamental perspective of our federal tourism growth strategy, which is how important the private sector is and how important conferences are and meetings are to the strategy. But I'm getting ahead of myself, and the team's like, where's he going with the speech already? Donc, un gros merci à tout le monde. Il y a toujours une blague avec l'équipe. They're trying to figure out how much of the speech I'm going to give and how much I'm going to ad-lib. So they have a little poll before I give the speech to see what percentage actually gets declared. Mais on est ici pour parler de la Semaine du Tourisme, and I want to say that the theme of this year's National Tourism Week is powered by tourism. And it couldn't be more perfect. Like, it's such an inspired theme because it's true, because tourism is indeed a powerhouse. This sector runs on the hard work, passion, and innovation of workers and the small, medium-sized enterprises that make up the ecosystem. And these are businesses that are owned by women, Indigenous people, racialized Canadians, members of the 2S LGBTQI+ community, persons with disabilities, and so many others. And when it comes to tourism, we're taking a truly Team Canada approach. Whether it's the Inn on Fogo Island, whether it's Métis Crossing in Alberta, Charlevoix near Quebec, or I gotta say, you know, Pursuit in Banff. I see you here, my friend. Great that you're here. And look, the resorts in Tofino, or one of my favorite, paddling down the Yukon River with my friend Brendan Hanley, who, you know, after he was Chief Medical Officer of Health, became a member of Parliament and said, if you're coming to Whitehorse, we are getting you on the river, and we did, and I'll never forget it. And these events remind us that tourism taps into culture and values and our home and our great open spaces. Comme Beth l'a dit plus tôt, c'est exactement la raison pour laquelle le budget 2023 prévoit 108 millions de dollars pour créer des expériences canadiennes et autochtones encore plus distinctes et authentiques. Et cet investissement s'inscrit dans le cadre de la nouvelle stratégie fédérale de croissance du tourisme que nous élaborons pour l'industrie. Et elles soutiendront les communautés, les petites entreprises et les organismes à but non lucratif dans l'élaboration des projets et d'événements. Et je pense que c'est important de noter ce fonds de 50 millions de dollars qui va nous aider à attirer des événements sportifs, des événements culturels, des événements des affaires, parce que c'est très critique qu'on évite et qu'on enlève les silos. Okay? The days of silos are over. It's not sport or tourism, it's sport tourism. It's not tourism or sport, it's tourism and sport. It's not our festivals or MICE, I love it, that's the acronym, whether it's events like conferences and major events, whether they're coming to our cities. No. If it's an event, if it brings people in to our city, to our province, to our country, it counts. And so that's what I want to see. And so let's think about how Canada can be a platform for all of those fantastic events. And not as only tourism famously inclusive, it also has the power to transform single industry and resource-dependent towns. Young people, Indigenous communities, and rural residents are all depending on the tourism industry, on you, and on all of us, and we can't let them down. I remember my first roundtable for the Federal Tourism Growth Strategy was an investment roundtable. And we had a whole bunch of financiers around the table and people from across the country. And Andrew Hiscock from the eastern slope of Newfoundland and Labrador told us what it was like to live through the demise of the cod fishery in the 90s. And he said we all had a choice. We could just roll up our communities and leave, or we could get busy and pivot to tourism. And we pivoted to tourism, and in 10 years, we turned tourism in Newfoundland and Labrador from the industry of last resort to the industry of first resort. And that is happening across this country. And friends, there are countries around the world that are investing hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars because they see the future of the visitor economy. And we are rounding that corner here in Canada, where we are going to no longer take a passive approach to how we bring the visitor economy to our country, but an intentional approach to bring high-value guests to our country, and they're going to have an amazing experience. My team and I heard loudly and clearly that we need a whole-of-government approach to address everything from affordable housing and childcare to improved transportation and supply chain management. And while I'm the first standalone tourism minister federally, I'm certainly not I'm not the work-alone minister. What do I mean by that? I have 23 colleagues, 23 federal ministers that touch the tourism portfolio in one way or another. And so if we want to work together, we have to work together. And that's why if you take a look at the budget, it's what Rachel said, it's what Beth said, it's got money in there for everything from electronic travel authorizations to more money for CATSA, to the money we talked about with the bid fund, but also to the RDAs. But friends, there's also money in there for a new grocery rebate, lower credit card transaction fees. They're going to save your merchants $1 billion over the next 5 years just by reducing those interchange fees, cracking down on junk fees and predatory lending. And you know, I also think it's important that as we head into Tourism Week, when you hear announcements from my colleagues, like a review of air access or what we're going to do to protect the traveling passenger, it's all part of the tourism ecosystem. And so these one-offs actually have some strategy behind them now, and it's working as a whole-of-government approach. And so, friends, there are challenges ahead, but even more opportunities on the horizon. We are really at the precipice of a Canadian century. If we just get all of these pieces right. Les pays confiants investissent en eux-mêmes. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Well, confident countries invest in themselves. And Barack Obama said that when he was here in 2016 in the House of Commons. And this is a confident country. This is a country that knows how to get things done. And it's a country of prosperity, of welcome, of opportunity, and of promise. And it's up to us in this room to seize that moment. And it's why we've made the choices we've made in this budget, but it's also the support of our tourism industry that's going to be on the front lines of welcoming people to our country. And so we're governing not only for now, but for the next 5, 10, and 50 years from now. And so there's also another line in that budget, and I'm going to extrapolate. If there's going to be $100 trillion US invested in private sector capital to green the global economy and get us to net zero, there is a whole lot of tourism dollars in that pie. Why? Because trade leads travel. Don't take my word for it. Look at the numbers. Tourism is Canada's #1 service export. Point à la ligne. C'est pas les services financiers, c'est pas l'intelligence artificielle, c'est pas la IT, it's tourism. $105 billion in revenue, over $45 billion to our GDP. This is big business. And as the world comes to Canada more and more for our critical minerals, for hydrogen, for all that we have to offer the world, trade is going to lead travel. And one thing we know, friends, is when somebody comes to Canada once, they come back 4 and 5 times, and some of them even decide to make Canada their home. And there are a few of you in the room who I know you know what I'm talking about because you've made that journey yourselves. So we're going to continue to welcome visitors from around the world. We're going to continue to put on the best show we can here when they come to Canada. And you know, when they come here, they're going to say Canada's nice. They're going to say we love Canada. And we're going to look back to them, oh, you think that's all we got? Nice is just the beginning. Powered by Canada, let's go everyone. National Tourism Week, put out a selfie, get on your social media. We can do this together. Merci beaucoup, Miigwech.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le ministre, pour ces mots inspirants en ce début de la semaine du tourisme. This now concludes the speaking portion of the press conference. I'm just going to see if there are questions in the room before we conclude. Seeing none, I'd like to thank you all for participating this morning in the launch of Tourism Week. I look forward to seeing you this evening for the reception and for the events that will continue throughout the week. Thank you very much and have an excellent Monday. Bonne semaine du tourisme.